Have you ever wondered what happens when a family's secrets are so deep they could destroy your daughter's marriage? Imagine discovering your child's in-laws are not who they seem, relentless, controlling, and hiding a secret that could ruin everything. This is the story of one mother who uncovered the truth before it was too late. Stick with me because this one will keep you on the edge of your seat. It was the kind of day every mother dreams of for her daughter. The white satin gown shimmered under the church lights. The guests clapped as Emily walked down the aisle, and my heart swelled with a pride I could hardly put into words. She looked radiant, her smile soft but full of certainty. Ryan was waiting at the altar, his eyes fixed on her as though she was the only person in the world. In that moment, I thought maybe my little girl had found her forever happiness. The ceremony was beautiful, almost too perfect to believe. Friends from both families laughed and clinked glasses at the reception. Music floated through the hall, and speeches filled the room with promises of love, loyalty, and new beginnings. I had raised Emily mostly on my own, and watching her step into this new chapter was both joyous and bittersweet. For years I told myself that as long as she was loved and cared for, I could let her go without worry. Ryan seemed kind, respectful, and ambitious. His family, his parents Barbara and Tom, appeared supportive, even warm. They hugged me, complimented Emily, and spoke about how excited they were to blend our families. But there was something in Barbara's smile that lingered in the back of my mind. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was just me, adjusting to the idea that my daughter wasn't just mine anymore. Still, I noticed the way she always seemed to be the loudest voice in the room, quick to offer opinions, quick to steer conversations back to her. I brushed it aside. After all, wedding days bring out strong personalities. Surely it was nothing to worry about. The first few weeks after the wedding, Emily seemed happy. She would call me and tell me about cooking dinners with Ryan, about decorating their small rental apartment, about the joy of finally having a place of their own. I felt relief wash over me with every phone call. Ryan was attentive, she said. They were dreaming together, saving for a bigger house someday, talking about kids, planning their future like any young couple. I thought this is how it should be. But slowly, small details started slipping into our conversations. Emily would mention how Barbara dropped by unannounced, often with suggestions about how Emily should cook, clean, or even how she should talk to Ryan. Once, Emily laughed as she told me her mother-in-law insisted on reorganizing their pantry the right way. I laughed too, trying to keep it light. But in the back of my mind, the unease grew a little stronger. Still, I didn't say anything. Newlyweds have to find their rhythm, and meddling in-laws are practically a cliché. Emily sounded more amused than upset. I convinced myself it wasn't worth worrying about. Then came the first family dinner after the wedding. They invited me to Ryan's parents' house, a large colonial-style home with pristine landscaping and an interior that looked like something out of a magazine. Barbara welcomed me with her usual polished smile. Tom shook my hand firmly, and for a while everything seemed perfectly cordial. The table was set with silverware I wouldn't have dared to use in my own home, and Barbara poured wine like a practiced hostess. Dinner started out pleasantly enough, with stories about Ryan's childhood and jokes about married life. But halfway through the meal, Barbara leaned forward, her tone shifting just slightly, as though she had been waiting for the right moment. "You know," she said, looking directly at me, "Ryan and Emily have been talking about buying a house, a real starter home, something they can grow into." I smiled politely. "That's wonderful. Owning a home is a big step." She tilted her head, her smile tightening. "Of course, young couples these days need help. Houses aren't cheap. A down payment can be quite a hurdle." Tom nodded in agreement, adding, "We helped Ryan's cousin with his down payment last year. It's what families do, pull together." I felt my stomach tighten. There was an expectation in her voice, an assumption that went beyond casual conversation. Emily's face turned pink, and Ryan shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Neither of them said anything, and in the silence that followed, the weight of the suggestion fell squarely on me. I forced a small laugh. "Well, buying a home is a big responsibility. I'm sure they'll figure it out when the time is right." Barbara's smile didn't falter, but her eyes hardened just for a second. It was as if she wasn't used to people sidestepping her hints. She quickly changed the subject, asking Emily about her new job, but the tension lingered like an unwelcome guest at the table. That night as I drove home, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Emily hadn't looked me in the eye as we said goodbye, and Ryan had been unusually quiet. I wanted to believe it was nothing more than a misunderstanding, but deep down, I sensed this was only the beginning. Over the next few weeks, the calls from Emily grew shorter, less cheerful. She sounded tired, distracted. When I asked if everything was okay, she always said yes, but her voice carried a heaviness I hadn't heard before. Finally, one evening she came over alone. She sat at my kitchen table, fiddling with the sleeve of her sweater, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Mom," she whispered, "they want us to buy a house. And they expect you to help with the down payment." The words hung in the air like a storm cloud. I tried to stay calm to mask the anger bubbling inside me. My daughter had just married, barely begun her new life, and already her in-laws were circling like vultures. I reached across the table and took her hand. "Emily, listen to me. You don't owe them anything. And neither do I. If you and Ryan want a home, you'll get one the right way in your own time. Don't let anyone pressure you into rushing." She nodded, but her shoulders remained tense. I could see the conflict written all over her face, the love she had for Ryan, the respect she wanted to show his parents, and the quiet fear of what would happen if she stood her ground. In that moment, I realized the battle ahead wasn't going to be simple, and as much as I wanted to protect her, I knew we were stepping into something much darker than just a pushy request for money, because people don't push this hard unless they have something to hide. A week after that difficult conversation in my kitchen, Emily called me again. Her voice was quieter than usual, almost careful, as if someone was listening. She said Ryan wanted them to come over for Sunday dinner at his parents' house, and she asked if I'd come too. I hesitated. After the last dinner, I wasn't exactly eager to sit at that table again. But then I heard the pleading in her voice. My daughter didn't want to face them alone. "Of course," I told her. "I'll be there." That Sunday, I walked into Barbara and Tom's house with a heavy heart. The smell of roast beef filled the air, and the dining table gleamed under the chandelier. Everything looked picture perfect, but the atmosphere was tight, like everyone was waiting for something to drop. Emily looked pale, her smile forced. Ryan tried to act normal, but he was fidgeting, unable to settle. Dinner began the same as before, small talk about work and the weather, polite questions about my week. But I knew it wouldn't last. Barbara wasn't the kind of woman who danced around forever. Halfway through the meal, she set her fork down and folded her hands neatly on the table. "So," she said, her tone firm but sweet, "Ryan and Emily have found a wonderful house. It's in a great neighborhood close to schools with room for a growing family. It's perfect for them." I felt my jaw tighten. Here it was again, only sharper this time. Ryan cleared his throat, looking at his plate. "It's 3 bedrooms, big yard. Great investment." Emily glanced at me quickly, then down at her lap. I could see the conflict in her eyes. Barbara continued, "The only problem, of course, is the down payment. It's a big one but manageable with some help. We thought since Emily is your only child, and you've always wanted the best for her, you'd be willing to contribute." The word contribute landed like a stone. I placed my fork down slowly. "Barbara, I understand wanting the best for Emily and Ryan, but buying a house is a decision for them, and a down payment is something they should prepare for themselves. I can't just—" Barbara cut me off, her smile still painted on but her voice sharper. "It's not about whether you can. It's about family. When Ryan's cousin bought his first house, the whole family pitched in. It's tradition. We all want to see them succeed." Tom chimed in, his tone calmer but backing her up. "You'd be protecting their future. Real estate is the smartest investment. If you wait too long, prices will just keep climbing." Emily's cheeks were red now. She looked torn between speaking up and staying silent. Finally she whispered, "Mom, maybe it's okay. Maybe we can just—" But her voice trailed off, thin and unconvincing. I turned to her. "Sweetheart, this isn't about okay. It's about fairness. You and Ryan are just starting out. You don't need to rush into a mortgage because someone else is telling you to." Barbara's eyes narrowed, though her smile never fully slipped. "With all due respect," she said, "Ryan and Emily aren't children. They're adults, ready for the next step. You should be happy to help them, not hold them back." There it was, the guilt trip, the manipulation wrapped up in polite words. My pulse quickened, but I kept my voice steady. I'm not holding them back. I'm making sure they aren't trapped in something they aren't ready for. The room went silent. The only sound was the faint clink of Tom's fork against his plate. Emily looked like she might cry. Ryan finally spoke, his voice low. Mom, Dad, maybe we shouldn't pressure. Barbara shot him a look that shut him up instantly. The rest of dinner was quiet, strained. No more small talk, no more laughter. Just the sound of forced chewing and unspoken resentment filling the room. When I left that night, Emily walked me out to my car. Her hands were trembling. I don't know what to do, she admitted. Ryan doesn't want to upset them. He says they're just trying to help us, but I feel like it's not really about us at all. I hugged her tightly. Listen to me, Emily. This isn't love. Love doesn't come with strings attached. Your marriage is between you and Ryan, not his parents. You don't owe them control over your future. She nodded, but her eyes looked haunted. I knew she wanted to believe me, but the hold his parents had over Ryan was stronger than I realized. Over the next few weeks, the pressure didn't stop. Barbara called Emily almost every day, reminding her about the house, about how opportunities don't wait forever. She left voicemails on my phone too, laced with politeness but sharp underneath. We just want to give the kids a good start. I'm sure you understand. The more they pushed, the more uneasy I felt. This wasn't just about a house. Something deeper was at play. People don't demand money this insistently unless there's something behind it. Something they're not saying. And I was determined to find out what it was. I thought maybe after that last dinner, Barbara and Tom would ease off. Maybe they'd see how uncomfortable Emily was, how tense Ryan had become, and they'd back away a little. But I should have known better. People like them don't back away. They push until they get what they want. It was a Thursday evening when Emily showed up at my door again. Her face looked pale, her eyes tired, and she barely touched the cup of coffee I put in front of her. They invited us over again this weekend, she said, her voice soft. Mom, I don't want to go. Then don't, I told her simply. You're an adult, Emily. You don't owe them every Sunday of your life. Her lips trembled as she answered. Ryan says we have to. He says if we don't go, they'll think we're ungrateful. He doesn't want to disappoint them. I reached over and touched her hand. Sweetheart, marriage is about the two of you, not about making his parents happy. She blinked rapidly, trying to hold back tears. I know, but sometimes I feel like I married them too. They're always there, always telling Ryan what's best. And he listens, Mom. He listens to them more than he listens to me. My heart ached, but I forced myself to stay calm. Then we'll go this weekend. Together. I'll be there with you. When Sunday came, I walked into Barbara and Tom's house again, determined not to let them steamroll me. The dining room looked the same as always, perfectly polished like a magazine spread. But the air was thick with tension before we even sat down. Barbara wasted no time. As soon as the plates were served, she leaned forward, her eyes fixed on me. We've been talking, she said smoothly, and the kids found out the bank has pre-approved them. All that's left is securing the down payment. Once that's done, everything falls into place. Emily's fork clattered against her plate. She looked at Ryan, her voice breaking slightly. Why didn't you tell me the bank already approved something? Ryan shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting to his mother. It's easier this way. My parents know how this stuff works. Know how it works. Emily repeated, her voice sharper now. This is supposed to be our decision, Ryan. Our future. Not theirs. Barbara's smile tightened, but she didn't flinch. Emily, darling, your mother-in-law only wants what's best. A good home is stability. Safety. Don't you want that? Emily's voice trembled. Of course I do. But not like this. Not when it feels like we're being forced. Barbara gave a small, dismissive laugh. Forced? Oh, sweetheart, no one's forcing you. We're simply guiding you. That's what family does. And besides, your mother knows it's the right thing. She understands. Every eye at the table turned to me. For a moment, the weight of their stares pressed down like a stone. I took a breath, steadying myself. I understand that rushing two young people into a mortgage they can't afford is not love, it's control, I said firmly. And I won't be a part of it. Tom's fork froze midair. Ryan stared at me, his face pale. Emily looked both relieved and terrified at the same time. Barbara's smile finally cracked. Her voice was low, sharp. You'd rather see your daughter struggle in a tiny apartment than give her the foundation she deserves? That's selfish. My hands curled into fists in my lap. Selfish is asking someone else to shoulder a responsibility that doesn't belong to them. If Emily and Ryan want a house, they'll save for it. They'll earn it. That's what builds strength. Not handouts with hidden strings. For a moment the room was silent. Then Barbara leaned back, her eyes narrowing. I see. So that's your decision. Emily suddenly pushed her chair back, her voice shaking. This isn't just about Mom. It's about me too. I don't want to be controlled by money. I don't want my marriage to be built on debts and favors. Ryan reached for her hand, but she pulled away. His face fell, and he looked helpless, torn between the woman he'd married and the parents who'd raised him. Barbara's voice softened again, almost syrupy. Emily, darling, you're overreacting. We just want to make sure you're taken care of. But I saw it then, behind her polished words, behind her rehearsed smile. There was desperation. A kind of need that went beyond parental concern. And that was when my suspicion solidified. This wasn't about Emily and Ryan at all. This was about Barbara and Tom. There was something they weren't telling us. And I intended to find out exactly what it was. Emily showed up at my house the next evening without calling first. She never did that unless something was really wrong. I opened the door, and before I could even ask, she stepped inside and wrapped her arms around me, burying her face into my shoulder like she hadn't done since she was a teenager. Mom, she whispered, her voice cracking. I don't know what to do anymore. I guided her to the couch, rubbed her back, and waited. She pulled away after a few moments, wiping her eyes with the sleeve of her sweater. They don't stop, she said. It's every day now. Calls, texts, questions about the house. Mom, it's not just about me anymore. Ryan, he's different. He keeps saying we should trust them. That they know better. I frowned. Honey, Ryan's a grown man. Why does he act like he can't make a decision without them? She hesitated, biting her lip. Then she said something that chilled me. He's always been like this. Since college. They paid for his tuition, but it wasn't just money, it was control. They called him every week to check his grades, told him what classes to take, even who to hang out with. He was 21 and still asking their permission to do anything. And it hasn't stopped. Every big choice he's ever made, they've been in the middle of it. I sat back, stunned. And you knew this before you married him? Emily nodded slowly. I thought it would change. I thought once we got married he'd stand on his own 2 feet. But now it feels like I married all 3 of them. Ryan doesn't even see it. He thinks this is normal. Her voice cracked again. And I don't want to lose him, Mom. I love him. But I feel like I'm already losing myself. I took her hands in mine. Emily, listen to me. You don't have to choose between love and independence. A marriage only works if both people stand together. If he can't stand with you, away from them, then that's not a marriage, it's a cage. She nodded, but I could see the battle raging inside her. She wanted to believe Ryan would change. She wanted to believe love could outweigh loyalty to his parents. But love alone doesn't untangle chains that have been there for decades. That week, things only escalated. Barbara started calling me directly, her tone always polite but edged with pressure. We just want what's best for the kids, she'd say. Don't you? Once she left a voicemail that made my stomach turn. If Emily doesn't get into that house now, she'll regret it forever. And so will you. It wasn't a threat exactly, but it didn't feel like a request anymore either. The following weekend, Emily and Ryan came to visit. Ryan looked tired, his hair unkempt, his shirt wrinkled. He sat stiffly on the couch while Emily hovered near the window, arms crossed. Mom, Ryan began, his voice hesitant. I think you might be misunderstanding my parents. They're just trying to help. That's all. They don't mean any harm. Ryan, I said carefully, help doesn't come with demands. Help doesn't push someone into debt. That's not help, it's control. His jaw tightened. They're my parents. They've always looked out for me. For us. Emily let out a bitter laugh. For us? Ryan, they don't care about us. They care about what they want. You can't even see it. Ryan's face flushed, his hands balling into fists. Don't talk about them like that. You don't understand. Everything I've done in my life, they've guided me. They've always been right. The silence that followed was heavy. Emily's eyes filled with tears, and she turned away, staring out the window. My heart broke seeing her like that, caught between the man she loved and the truth she couldn't ignore. After they left that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Ryan's words in my head. They've always been right. It sounded less like loyalty and more like programming. The kind that comes when someone is raised to believe obedience is love. But the bigger question gnawed at me. Why were his parents so obsessed with this house? Why push so hard so fast? Why treat it like life or death? The answer I felt deep in my bones was money. I remembered the way Barbara's eyes had flashed when I refused, the desperation behind her polished smile. People who are comfortable don't beg. People who are stable don't manipulate. Something about their finances wasn't adding up. And if Emily and Ryan were being pulled into that mess, I needed to know exactly what I was up against. The next time Barbara called, I agreed to meet them again, this time at the bank. She said it was just a formality, that the loan officer would walk us through the paperwork. I said yes, pretending to play along, but inside I knew. This was where the truth would finally show itself. The day of the bank meeting arrived, and I went with Emily and Ryan. Barbara and Tom were already there when we walked in, seated in the waiting area like they owned the place. Barbara greeted me with her usual polished smile, but her eyes flickered with something sharper, anticipation. "Oh good," she said, rising to shake my hand. "We were worried you might not come. This will be much smoother with you here." I forced a polite smile, though my stomach churned. "I just want to understand exactly what's going on." "Of course," she said quickly, her voice dripping with reassurance. "Transparency is everything." The four of us were led into a small conference room where a loan officer, Mr. Daniels, greeted us warmly. He was a tall man in his 50s with glasses perched on the end of his nose, the kind of man who looked like he'd seen 100 families just like ours sit across from him. He spread the paperwork neatly on the table, flipping through pages as he explained interest rates, terms, and pre-approval details. I listened carefully, nodding when appropriate, but my eyes kept darting to the signature lines. My name was already typed on one of them. Barbara leaned in smoothly. "We just need your signature here as a co-signer. That way the loan gets approved without any delays. It's really just a formality." Emily's head snapped up. "Co-signer? Mom, I didn't know they wanted you to." Barbara cut her off with a laugh. "Oh, don't make it sound so serious. It's just paperwork. It doesn't mean anything. Everyone does it." I looked directly at Mr. Daniels. "Doesn't mean anything?" I asked. He hesitated. "Well, co-signing does mean that if the primary borrowers can't make the payments, the co-signer is legally responsible for the loan." Emily gasped. "So if Ryan and I couldn't pay, then your mother would be on the hook," Mr. Daniels said gently. Barbara's smile faltered for half a second, but she recovered quickly. "Emily, darling, you'll make the payments. You both will. Your jobs are stable, your future is bright. This is just the key to unlocking the door." Emily's hands trembled in her lap. Ryan sat stiffly beside her, saying nothing, his eyes fixed on the table. My heart broke watching my daughter's face. Fear, guilt, and confusion all tangled together. I cleared my throat. "Why can't you co-sign, Barbara? Or you, Tom? You're the ones pushing for this." For the first time, Barbara's polished tone slipped. "We can't. It wouldn't look right on paper. The banks prefer someone else. Someone else with good credit," Mr. Daniels interjected without thinking. His eyes flicked to me, then back to the papers. The room went still. I turned slowly to Barbara. "Good credit," I repeated. "Is that what this is about? Your credit isn't good enough, so you want me to risk mine." Her cheeks flushed pink, but she kept smiling, as if she could charm her way through sheer will. "It's just technicalities. Numbers on a page. What matters is family helping family." Emily looked at Ryan, her voice trembling. "Ryan, did you know about this? About their credit?" Ryan rubbed the back of his neck, avoiding her eyes. I didn't think it was important. They said it was just paperwork." Emily's voice cracked. "You didn't think it was important that your parents can't co-sign because of their credit? That's a huge deal, Ryan." Barbara reached for her son's arm, her voice sharp now. Don't let them twist this, Ryan. We're all on the same side here. But Ryan pulled his arm away, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. He finally spoke, his voice low. Mom, Dad. Why didn't you just tell me? Tom cleared his throat, his deep voice steady but strained. Because it doesn't matter. We've had setbacks. Everyone does. But this isn't about us. It's about you and Emily starting your life right. My stomach dropped. Setbacks. That was a nice way of saying debts. I looked at Mr. Daniels. What happens if I refuse to sign? He pushed his glasses up, glanced at Barbara and Tom, then said carefully, then the loan won't be approved under these terms. Barbara leaned in, her voice soft but intense. Think about Emily. Think about her future. Do you want her stuck in that tiny apartment forever? This is her chance, and you're standing in the way. The desperation in her tone was louder than her words. This wasn't just about Emily. This was about them. I could see it now, the way Barbara's hands fidgeted slightly, the way Tom kept his jaw clenched. They needed this house for reasons they weren't saying. And I wasn't about to let them drag my daughter into their mess. I pushed the papers back toward Mr. Daniels. I'm not signing anything today. Barbara's face stiffened, her smile finally breaking. You're making a mistake, she hissed under her breath, just loud enough for me to hear. Maybe I was. But not as big a mistake as the one they were trying to force me into. As we left the bank that day, Emily clung to my arm, her face pale but her eyes clearer than they'd been in weeks. She whispered, Mom, thank you. And I knew right then. I just pulled the thread on a secret Barbara and Tom had been desperate to hide. I didn't sleep much the night after that meeting. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Barbara's smile cracking, Tom's jaw tightening, and Ryan sitting there like a little boy caught between his parents and his wife. But most of all, I kept replaying the bank manager's look when he said good credit. There had been something behind his eyes, like he wanted to say more but couldn't. Not with the others in the room. The next day my phone rang. It was the bank. Mr. Daniels. Mrs. Miller, he said carefully. Could you come by the branch? Alone. My stomach dropped. Is something wrong? He paused. I just think there are a few things you should know before you make any decisions. Things I couldn't say yesterday. When I arrived, he led me into his office, closed the door and lowered his voice. I don't usually do this, but I've seen too many families ruined because no one was honest up front. I think you deserve the truth. I nodded, bracing myself. Your daughter and son-in-law are fine, he said quickly. They could qualify for a modest starter loan on their own eventually. But their in-laws, Barbara and Tom, he leaned forward. They're drowning. Multiple defaults, unpaid credit lines, even a foreclosure on a property 2 years ago. They're blacklisted with most lenders in this area. I felt the blood drain from my face. Foreclosure. Yes. And if I'm being blunt, they're looking for someone else's credit to hide behind. That's why they push so hard for you to co-sign. If you had signed those papers yesterday, you wouldn't just be guaranteeing a mortgage, you'd be tying yourself to their debt. If they convinced Ryan and Emily to overextend, you'd be the one left responsible when it all collapsed. I sat back, my hands trembling. Everything suddenly made sense. The desperation, the constant pressure. The way Barbara smiled through gritted teeth when I resisted. They weren't helping Emily and Ryan at all. They were saving themselves. Why didn't you just say that yesterday? I asked. He sighed. Legally I couldn't. But I can't sit by and watch good people walk into a trap either. I've seen it too many times. Families torn apart, savings wiped out. You did the right thing refusing to sign. I pressed my hand to my mouth, fury mixing with relief. Emily doesn't know the half of this. She just thinks they're overbearing. She doesn't know they're desperate, he finished for me. And people who are desperate will do anything. His words echoed in my mind all the way home. When I walked into my kitchen, Emily was sitting at the table, her eyes puffy from crying. Ryan sat beside her, silent, staring at his hands. What happened? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Emily looked up, her voice breaking. They called again. Said if we don't move fast, we'll lose the house. Said you're ruining everything. I pulled out a chair, sat down and looked directly at Ryan. Ryan, I need you to listen carefully. Your parents are in serious financial trouble. They've defaulted on loans, they lost a property to foreclosure, and they're trying to use you, and me, to cover their mistakes. Ryan's head jerked up, his eyes wide. What? That can't be true. It is, I said firmly. The bank manager told me himself. That's why they need me to co-sign. Not for you. For them. They can't qualify for anything on their own anymore. And if I signed, I'd be putting my name on a pile of their failures. Emily's lips parted in shock, tears welling in her eyes. She turned to her husband. Ryan, did you know about this? He shook his head frantically. No, I swear. They never told me. They just said the bank needed a stronger application. I thought it was just paperwork. Emily's tears spilled over. It's not paperwork, Ryan. It's our lives. Do you see now? They're not protecting us. They're dragging us down with them. Ryan pressed his hands against his temples, his voice trembling. No, this doesn't make sense. My parents wouldn't do that to me. They wouldn't. Ryan, I said gently but firmly, they already did. They just didn't tell you. And if we don't put a stop to this, they'll do worse. The room went silent except for Emily's soft sobs. Ryan sat frozen, the weight of truth pressing down on him. For the first time I saw the cracks in his loyalty. Finally he whispered, I need to talk to them. Emily's head snapped toward him. Talk to them? Ryan, they've lied to you for years. They've controlled you, used you, and now they're trying to ruin us. What else do you need to hear? He looked at her, torn, his face pale. They're my parents, Emily. I can't just walk away. Her shoulders sagged, devastation written all over her. Then what about me? What about us? Are we supposed to sacrifice everything because you can't let go? Ryan buried his face in his hands, his silence answering louder than words. I sat there watching my daughter's heart break, and for the first time, I wondered if this marriage could even survive the shadow of Barbara and Tom. But one thing was certain. Their secret was out now, and nothing would ever be the same again. Ryan didn't wait long before setting up the confrontation. That night, he called his parents and asked them to come over. His voice was tight, clipped, nothing like the easygoing tone I was used to hearing from him. Emily and I sat in the living room bracing ourselves, while he paced the floor like a man about to walk into battle. When the knock came, Ryan opened the door with a stiff jaw. Barbara swept in first, her perfume filling the room before she even spoke. Tom followed slower, carrying the same quiet weight he always did. Barbara plastered on her hostess' smile, her eyes darting from me to Emily. Ryan, she said sweetly, we didn't expect to be summoned so urgently. What's going on? Ryan closed the door, his back straight. We need to talk. About everything. Barbara tilted her head, feigning confusion. Everything. Yes, Ryan said, his voice sharp. The bank. The co-signing. Your credit. The foreclosure. For a moment her mask slipped. A flash of panic crossed her face before she smoothed it away with a laugh. Oh, Ryan, don't be dramatic. You've been talking to people who don't understand our situation. We had a temporary issue. But that doesn't mean. Stop. Ryan's voice cracked like a whip. Don't spin it. Mr. Daniels told us the truth. You've defaulted. You lost a property. You've been hiding it from me for years. Tom shifted uncomfortably, his eyes avoiding ours. Barbara, though, stepped forward, her voice rising. We did what we had to do to keep this family afloat. Do you think life is easy? Do you think money just grows on trees? We made sacrifices. You lied. Emily's voice cut through raw and sharp. You didn't sacrifice, you gambled. And now you want to gamble with our lives, our future. You wanted to rope my mom into paying for your mistakes. Barbara's head snapped toward her, eyes narrowing. Watch your tone, young lady. You wouldn't even have a future without us guiding you. I couldn't sit silent any longer. Guiding her? Barbara, you've been manipulating her. Pressuring her. Using her marriage as a cover for your financial mess. Don't twist this into some noble act. You wanted me to co-sign because you knew you couldn't. And you didn't care if I lost everything. Barbara's face flushed deep red, but her voice turned icy. You think you're so much better? You sit there in judgment like you've never made a mistake. Maybe you've just been lucky. But some of us had to take risks to get ahead. Risks that failed, I said firmly. And now you want to drag us down with you. Not happening. Tom finally spoke, his voice low but weary. Barbara, stop. She spun on him, disbelief written across her face. Stop? Are you seriously taking their side? Tom rubbed his forehead. We can't keep pretending. Ryan deserves to know. Ryan stared at his father, his voice shaking. Know what? Tom hesitated, then sighed, his shoulders sagging. It wasn't just one foreclosure. There were two. And we've been juggling credit card debt for years. The bank accounts are drained. We thought if we could secure a house in your name, tied to your marriage, You'd what? Emily demanded. Cover it up? Start fresh while we're the ones paying the price. Tom's silence was answer enough. Ryan's face went pale. He looked like the floor had just been ripped out from under him. You were never helping me. You were using me. Using Emily. Using her mom. Barbara's mask finally shattered. Her voice rose, sharp and brittle. We're your parents. Everything we've done has been for you. You think we wanted to be in debt? You think we wanted to lose our home? We're trying to survive, Ryan. And if you had any sense of loyalty, you'd help us instead of siding with her. Her finger jabbed toward me like a knife. Emily stood, her voice fierce. Don't you dare blame my mom. She's the only one who's been honest. She's the only one protecting us. You've done nothing but manipulate and lie. Ryan's hands clenched at his sides. Mom. Dad. I can't do this. I can't keep covering for you. I love you, but this is too much. You've crossed a line. Barbara's face twisted, her voice breaking. We're your parents, Ryan. If you walk away from us now, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. But Ryan shook his head, tears brimming in his eyes. No. If I let you keep controlling us, that's what I'll regret. The silence that followed was deafening. Barbara stared at him like she didn't recognize her own son. Tom just looked old. Defeated. Finally, Barbara grabbed her purse, her voice trembling with rage. Fine. If you want to throw away your family, go ahead. But don't come crawling back when you realize how much you need us. She stormed out, heels clicking like gunshots against the floor. Tom lingered for a moment, his eyes meeting Ryan's. There was no anger in them, only sorrow. He whispered, I'm sorry, son, before following her out. When the door closed, Ryan collapsed onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. Emily sat beside him, her own tears streaming, but she didn't reach for him. For the first time, there was a space between them that I wasn't sure could be bridged. And as I stood there, watching my daughter's marriage tremble under the weight of his parents' lies, I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The days after that confrontation felt like walking through the wreckage of a storm. The house was quiet, but not in a peaceful way. It was the silence of two people circling each other, both wounded and unsure what to say next. Emily threw herself into work, leaving early and coming home late. When she was here, she spent her time in the bedroom or at the kitchen table, typing furiously on her laptop, barely looking up when Ryan spoke. Ryan, meanwhile, drifted through the house like a ghost. He'd sit on the couch staring at nothing, or pace the porch at night, smoking cigarettes he'd quit years ago. I'd never seen him look so small, so lost. One evening, I found Emily sitting at the table with her head in her hands. Her laptop screen glowed with apartment listings. Sweetheart, I said gently, are you looking for a new place? She wiped her eyes quickly, but her voice was sharp. I can't live like this, Mom. I can't keep waiting for Ryan to pick a side. Every time I look at him, all I see is them. I sat across from her. He's in shock, Emily. His parents just admitted they've been lying to him for years. That's not easy to process. Her lips pressed into a thin line. And while he processes, I'm supposed to what? Put my life on hold? Risk everything because he can't face the truth. I reached for her hand, but she pulled it back, shaking her head. I love him, Mom. I do. But love doesn't mean letting someone drag you into hell with them. Her words cut me to the core because I knew she was right. Still, the thought of her marriage collapsing so soon after it began made my chest ache. Later that night, I overheard Ryan on the phone in the backyard. His voice was low, pleading. Mom, please stop calling Emily at work. No, she didn't block your number, she doesn't want to talk right now. Dad, I can't just fix this. You have to give us space. There was a long pause, then his voice cracked. Don't say that. Don't make me choose. Please. I closed the curtain quietly, my heart breaking for him. He was caught between two worlds, his loyalty to the people who raised him, and his responsibility to the woman he chose. And he didn't know how to balance them. But Barbara wasn't the kind of woman who would fade into the background. The next morning, Emily stormed into the kitchen holding her phone. She called my boss, she said, her voice trembling with rage. What? I asked. She called my boss and told him I've been distracted since the wedding. Said I was under pressure at home, and maybe not reliable for promotion. Who does that? Ryan walked in just in time to hear it. His face drained of color. She what? Emily spun on him. This is what I've been saying. Your mother doesn't just meddle, she destroys. She wants to ruin my career now because she couldn't trap us in debt. Ryan opened his mouth but nothing came out. He just stood there, shoulders sagging under the weight of shame. I can't do this anymore, Emily whispered. I won't. She grabbed her keys and left, the door slamming so hard the windows rattled. Ryan collapsed into a chair, his hands gripping his hair. She's right, he muttered. Emily's right. Mom's poisoning everything. And I'm letting it happen. I sat down across from him, my voice steady. Then stop letting it happen. Draw the line, Ryan. Tell her no. For good. He looked up at me with haunted eyes. You don't understand. My mom doesn't take no. If I shut her out, she'll cut me off completely. Pretend I don't exist. Maybe that's not the punishment you think it is, I said softly. He flinched but didn't argue. That night, Emily came home late. She didn't speak to Ryan, just brushed past him into the bedroom and locked the door. I could hear her crying softly through the walls. Ryan sat on the couch with a drink in his hand, staring at the locked door like it was a prison he couldn't enter. I realized then that Barbara's poison had seeped into every crack of their marriage. Even when she wasn't in the room, she was there. Her voice, her manipulation, her shadow looming over everything. And I knew this couldn't go on much longer. Something had to break. The final crack came on a Sunday morning. Emily and I were in the kitchen making coffee when the doorbell rang. I expected it to be a neighbor or maybe Ryan coming back from a walk. Instead, it was Barbara, standing on the porch with a folder clutched to her chest and a smile stretched tight across her face. Emily, she said brightly, we need to talk. Woman to woman. Emily stiffened, her hand tightening on the doorknob. I don't want to talk to you. Barbara stepped forward uninvited. Please, just give me 5 minutes. I think you'll change your mind. I started to intervene, but Emily lifted her chin. Fine. 5 minutes. Barbara walked in, her heels clicking against the hardwood. She sat at the table like she owned the place and opened the folder, sliding papers across the table. Here. This is the new deal. We found another property, smaller, more manageable. If your mother just co-signs, it'll be easy. You'll have instant equity, and you'll thank me later. Emily pushed the papers back without looking. No. We're done. Barbara's smile faltered. You don't mean that. I do, Emily said firmly. You've lied, manipulated, and now you're trying to sabotage my career. You called my boss. You crossed a line, Barbara. Barbara blinked, her face tightening. You weren't supposed to know about that. I was trying to help. To explain why you seemed overwhelmed. Help. Emily's voice rose, shaking with fury. You tried to ruin me because I wouldn't obey you. That's not help, that's control. Barbara turned to me, her voice sharp. Are you really going to let her talk to me this way? After everything I've done for this family. I folded my arms. Barbara, you've done nothing but tear this family apart. You wanted me to sign away my security for your mess. You wanted to chain Emily and Ryan to your debts. And now you want to gaslight her into thinking sabotage is love. Not anymore. Just then Ryan walked in, grocery bags in his arms. He froze when he saw his mother at the table. His eyes darted from Emily's tear-streaked face to the folder on the table. Mom, he said slowly. What are you doing here? Barbara rose, her smile returning, brittle and desperate. I'm fixing things, Ryan. I'm giving you another chance. She held out the papers like a gift. This is how you secure your future. How you stay on the right path. Don't let her, she shot me a glare. Don't let her ruin it for you. Ryan set the bags down hard, the sound echoing through the kitchen. Stop. His voice shook, but it was louder than I'd ever heard it. Mom, stop. Barbara blinked. Ryan. No. His hands trembled as he pointed to the door. You've lied to me my whole life. You made me think you had everything under control when really you were drowning. And now you want to drag us down with you. I won't do it. Her face crumpled. I'm your mother. I know, Ryan whispered, his voice breaking. And I love you. But if loving you means letting you destroy my marriage, my life, then I can't. Not anymore. Barbara staggered back as though he'd struck her. For the first time she looked small, powerless. Her eyes darted between him and Emily, desperate for someone to yield. But Emily stood firm, her hand slipping into Ryan's. And I didn't move. Finally Barbara gathered the papers with shaking hands, stuffed them back into her folder, and whispered, You'll regret this. She brushed past me, her perfume trailing like smoke, and slammed the door behind her. The silence afterward was suffocating. Ryan sank into a chair, his face pale, his hands covering his eyes. Emily stood beside him, her shoulders trembling, but she didn't pull away when he reached for her hand. I watched them, my heart aching with both fear and relief. The battle wasn't over. Barbara wouldn't give up that easily. But something had shifted. For the first time, Ryan had chosen his wife over his mother. And that choice might just be the only thing that could save their marriage. The days after Barbara's final visit were quieter, but tense in a different way, the kind of quiet that comes after a storm, when everyone is trying to figure out what remains intact. Emily and Ryan didn't speak much at first, but there was no door slamming, no silent treatments, just the slow, cautious rebuilding of trust. I watched them carefully, stepping back but always nearby. Emily started cooking again, small dinners, letting Ryan help or not, depending on his mood. Ryan began opening up in small ways, telling her about work, sharing little frustrations, even laughing at jokes that would have passed unnoticed before. Barbara, of course, did not give up entirely. A week later, a letter arrived, postmarked from her home. Emily tore it open carefully, and I could see the tension spike in her shoulders. It was the same old attempt. A plea, a guilt trip, and another veiled demand that I somehow make things right financially. I looked at her and said simply, No. She stared at me, then at the letter, her hands trembling. Mom, she's relentless. Barbara can write all the letters she wants, I said firmly. She can beg, plead, manipulate, but you and Ryan are done listening. She lost her hold the moment Ryan chose you over her. Emily looked at Ryan, who had finally come into the room. His expression was solemn but steady. We need boundaries, he said quietly. No more meetings, no more calls, no more letters. She nodded, relief and fear mingling on her face. I think we can do that. I was so scared she'd never stop. She won't, Ryan admitted. But we can stop letting her control us. Starting now, we're our own people. It wasn't perfect. They both knew it would take months, maybe years, to fully heal from the manipulation and lies. But the first steps were always the hardest, and they had taken them together. We sat in the living room that evening, sipping tea and listening to the quiet hum of the house. Emily leaned her head on Ryan's shoulder, and for the first time in weeks, I saw a flicker of peace. The next few weeks passed with small victories. Ryan started limiting contact with his parents, answering only brief messages, never letting them pull him into financial conversations. Emily's career stabilized. Her boss reassured her after she explained the situation, and she regained confidence she hadn't felt in months. Barbara tried one last time, a call to Ryan asking him to reconsider for the family's sake, but he let it ring to voicemail. No guilt, no hesitation. He had chosen a new path, one where he and Emily made decisions for themselves, not for the people who wanted to control them. And slowly life began to normalize. There were arguments, of course, small fights born from months of stress and betrayal. But they were theirs, small, human, and resolvable. The marriage, once teetering on the edge, began to find its footing. One evening, Emily turned to me as we cleared the kitchen together. Mom, she said, smiling faintly, thank you. I don't think we would have made it without you. I hugged her tightly. You don't need me to fight your battles anymore, sweetheart. You and Ryan have what matters most. You have each other. Ryan appeared behind her, resting a hand on her shoulder. And we're going to keep it that way, he said softly. I looked at the two of them, hand in hand, stronger for having faced the storm. Barbara and Tom would always be part of their lives, but no longer the masters of it. The secret had been revealed, the lies had been confronted, and the family, our family, had survived the test. For the first time in months, I felt a real sense of relief. The house, the debt, the manipulation, it all could be left behind. And what remained was love, choice, and the hard-earned freedom to live life on their terms. The doorbell rang that evening. I opened it to find a neighbor, holding a package for Emily and Ryan. A small, cozy housewarming gift from someone who had witnessed their struggle from afar. Emily smiled, Ryan laughed, and for the first time, the future felt like theirs to shape. And in that moment I knew they were free,